Hello everyone, welcome back to TH Designs, and welcome specifically to one of the most anticipated videos in the history of this channel. It is episode 1 of the second season of the Wheel of Wonders. We have a lot to cover in this video, but we are going to get to the actual first installation of the park. Before we dive into the first installment of Season 2's park, let's recap what the Wheel of Wonders is all about for our new viewers, before we see all of the changes, because there's plenty. So the Wheel of Wonders was an idea and a concept that was birthed in July of 2025 last year. Essentially, it's as simple as it gets. A wheel from wheeldecide.com hosts every single question and every single decision that comes with designing a roller coaster. Across 15 different episodes and across genuinely almost a year of work, we created Season 1. Hosting multiple different monstrosities of rides varying from different challenges to different coaster models, different speeds, different heights, different themes of course as well, many of which were recommended by you, the viewers, and that's the beautiful thing about this series. And today it carries on into the second season, something that you guys have been begging for. For those who have not seen Season 1, this is the final park of Season 1. This is all 15 rides in this very laggy mess. This will be the last time we take a good look at this park because we have a brand new map to host the second season of monstrosities in the Wheel of Wonders. Brace yourself because the second map looks a lot different. Let's jump over and let's introduce to you all of the changes in Season 2. Welcome to the entrance of Season 2 of Wheel of Wonders in a brand new park. Now this is our little humble entrance, but really, this is the scale of the entire thing. We are taking Season 2 a little bit more realistically. I've listened to a lot of the comments that have pumped through the entire Season 1 and all of the recaps, and listened to a lot of the feedback that you guys wanted to see. And the biggest one, and at least one I completely agree with, is that the Season 1 park felt more like a showcase or a gallery walk. It felt more like every coaster existed independently, and this Season 2 park is going to expand well beyond that idea of the individual coaster. We are going to be doing themed areas with multiple different attraction types that all have this cohesive feel. The wheel in Season 2 is genuinely going to be a park, a through and through, true to Planet Coaster's nature amusement park. And that's why we're starting off with a quarter of the map being a very realistic type of parking lot, and leading up into a really nice little plaza with an already made carousel, gift shop, and a little restaurant. And I have those here because this park, like I said, is going to be more than a gallery walk. We are going to have flat rides, we are going to have tracked rides, we are going to have stalls and restaurants, and we are going to have maybe the most requested thing since episode 1, we are going to have a water park. Now, where all those things are going to be placed, that's entirely up to the wheel, which means the entire workflow has been changed as well. We have added new wheels to the workflow to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more diverse as well, guaranteeing that we're seeing more coaster types and varieties, as well as tracked rides, flat rides, water slides, like I've said, as well as stalls, so that when you're walking around this park, it actually feels like a working amusement park. Now, that's only just the surface of some of the things we've added, but this is the park. So let's jump into the actual episode itself, where I will actually show you the new workflow in action and all of the new features to the wheels themselves and the actual additional wheels that we have added to the process. And before we dive into the challenge, we'll know that this episode is probably going to be a little smaller, and smaller episodes and rides and areas might be a theme anyway, with just naturally the park being a little bit smaller. But this episode, along with whatever the challenge wheel gives us, is also going to have to interact with the park entrance. It feels a little bland. Some empty space over here, some empty space over here. I say we need something fun to kick off episode 1. So whatever the first challenge is, we're going to be interacting with this waffle entrance structure, whatever this is. So let's jump into it. So here we are with the challenge wheel. Nothing too new about this wheel, pretty straightforward stuff. We did add 2 new ones since last season, which most of these are ones that have just carried over. Those 2 new ones are Kylie's Choice, which is one that we're going to see a few times. And second is it must be ASTM compliant, which is actually a great comment from the last video on this channel. Those 2 new additions sit alongside some of the old ones. Feel free to comment what new challenges you would like to see added to this wheel. You guys drive this series with your recommendations, so keep them coming. This is the first spin on an entirely new season, so let's see what the wheel gives us. Hopefully something pretty good. Shuttle launch. Okay, that's been there I think since like episode 1. That's a pretty good one, and especially for the interaction with the entrance, I'm not against that. That's pretty good. It does mean we're going to need a launch coaster though. So a shuttle coaster is like a lot of these boomerangs that have been around forever. It feels like one of the most widely produced coaster model types ever. Here's a launch variant with a Schwarzkopf model. Another shuttle example are like some of these pre-builds that are in the game. They can be chain lifts with this kind of backward lift, or they can be launches. The challenge said shuttle launch. I also think that's a little bit more interesting. I also think it helps us out with the interaction with the entrance. So let's take a look at the brand new way of deciding what coaster type we're going to be using. So here is the first wheel of the coaster selection process. You'll have to forgive me. There are a lot of new wheels in the workflow. We'll go through them quickly, but this is the first one you definitely do not recognize. This is the coaster category. So before every single coaster is built, we have to decide if it's going to be a thrill coaster. That's what that says behind that arrow. An extreme coaster or a family coaster. And each of these come with different ranges of both speed and height, depending on whatever model you get. So for example, a family coaster can only be 25 to 50 miles an hour and has to be 25 to 100 feet in height. This is to further feed that idea of realism in the park. Not every single coaster can be thrill, not every single coaster can be family, and not every single coaster can be extreme. You may notice that these slices are different sizes, so most coasters in the park are going to be thrill, some will be family, and some will be this blue slice, which is extreme. These are the record breakers, these are the Morroids, these are the Colossuses of the park. These will be picked occasionally, but we're probably going to get a thrill coaster. So let's see what this shuttle launch coaster is going to be. Not a shock to anybody. Statistically, the most probable, it is a thrill coaster. Most of these will be. So the thrill coaster type does have a range. For height, which is not really that applicable to us because we do have a launch coaster, it's 100 feet to 300 feet. So pretty large range. Launch is 50 miles per hour, so let's make that. And then 125 as the max. Very wide range here. Just because most of the rides are going to be thrill coasters doesn't mean there's not room for variety. So let's see what it's going to be. 81. That's no joke. That's a fast coaster. Definitely means the coaster is going to be on the bigger side. So now that we know our shuttle is going to be an 81 mile per hour launch, this would be the next wheel, which is coaster types. Now you may be wondering, Toph, why do we have so many wheels? Is this a little redundant? Yeah, maybe, to be honest. But what this is guaranteeing by having the wooden, the water, suspended launch, special, alternate lift, chain lifts, wings, all of these different varieties, this wheel ensures that every single coaster model is truly represented. If we look back at season 1, we had no wooden coasters, no wing coasters, only one water coaster, no special coasters. You kind of catch my drift? Everything was more or less a launch or a chain lift steel coaster. This wheel ensures that this park is truly going to have a diverse lineup. Now we don't have to spin this because we now know we have a shuttle launch, so we could skip this and head directly over to the launch coaster model types. And that brings us to this wheel, which has every single model type in Planet Coaster that has a launch mechanism. There's quite a handful here. So let's spin it and let's see what's going to be interacting with the entrance and what's going to be a shuttle launch, let's not forget. Let's see what it's going to be. A lot of good options here. Don't really have anything too special. That's a model we've never had before. And it actually, funny enough, is going to be a lot like the King to Ka replacement that they're building at Great Adventure. So this is actually a pretty relevant pick, kind of insane. And you can see that model right here, which this is pretty exciting because this is a model I've actually never worked with outside of that King to Ka video, that Gargantua model concept, whatever they're calling it. So this is going to be a new one, and if you're not familiar, this is a Mock Rides product. This is a spinning coaster that can basically launch, it can invert, it can do all these fun things, and it can be a shuttle, so this is actually pretty appropriate. This model has some incredible rides like Ride to Happiness or Time Traveler as well. Now before we dive into the actual layout process, which also has an updated workflow, nothing too crazy, but it is updated, we have to figure out where this station is going to be. We have to figure out whether it's going to be on the left over here, filling up this plot of land, or on the right, kind of filling up this awkward strip of land. If I put it here and have a turnaround into an actual launch strip into the first element, by the time we get to the entrance, I'm hoping that the speed of the coaster comes down enough that this is a reasonable height to work with. And obviously the spike or the stall or whatever we do can be over here, which is actually a nice little interactive moment with the bus shuttle. No pun intended. Little shuttle on shuttle action there. Which, don't forget, this whole area is up for grabs when it comes to theming. There will be flat rides and potentially another tracked ride also over here. Let's talk about the new element workflow. The element wheel historically has just been spun over and over and over, element to element to element. This was another one of the biggest criticisms from season 1, and I absolutely share this same frustration. Every single coaster from season 1 was awesome, super fun, definitely very fun to look at. But ultimately, when it came down to it, every single POV was more or less the same, apart from the coaster type, the coaster's size, and the theming. The actual layout was relatively copy and paste every single time. It was very boom, 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 element, 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 and less of an actual intentional and realistic coaster layout. So the workflow has changed for the actual construction of the layout. I've changed it so that more power is to the creator, the builder, me, and less to the wheel. But, don't click off yet. The spirit of the wheel is still there because there's still the element of shock. Let me explain. This time with the new workflow, we actually have to spin this wheel before we actually get to the building of the coaster. And as you can see by the title, the number of elements is what we're deciding with this wheel. So how exactly does that work? Well, historically in season 1, we had about 7 elements on average per coaster. 7 is still an option on this wheel, but you can see that the slices are weighted differently, so that getting 1, getting 2, getting 9, or 10 are very slim, very small. This is to encourage more transitional elements, a little bit more intention, and also smaller coasters, relatively speaking, so that we can focus a little bit more on the flat rides, the tracked rides, the stalls, the theming process, and all those things. So with that said, let's spin this wheel for our 81 mile per hour spinning coaster, and let's see how many elements we're going to be allowed to use in this coaster. Not that shocking, we have 4 slots for elements. And the way that that works is we can build the coaster really however much we want. And then in the middle of the actual building process, I go, okay, I think I'm ready for an element here. And then later, maybe I go here. And when I decide that I want that element, that's when I spin the element wheel. But this doesn't take away the power of the wheel to give us things like a hairpin turn or a saxophone to completely ruin our plans. Alright, there's the launch done. You may notice immediately that the station has moved. That's because the launch is actually way longer than I thought, and even this is probably a little too forceful. Let's jump over to the element wheel. The element wheel hasn't changed, but we are going to find out what's going to be immediately after the launch, and then we get some freedom to figure out what we're going to do after that. Alright, welcome to where all of the magic happens, the Season 2 version of the Elements wheel. All of the OGs are here, including the unique elements that we added in around episode 8 or so of last season. We also have some new additions to this wheel somewhere in this mess of unknown or unlabeled slices. We have Dealer's Choice, Kylie's Choice, RCDB, where we pick a random coaster and choose one from that coaster. And we also have Google Images, where you literally just look up roller coasters and see what you see. You know what I mean? We'll figure it out. So this is going to be immediately after an 81 mile per hour launch, which means whatever element this is going to be huge. So let's see what it's going to be. Hopefully the wheel is kind. Hopefully. Banana roll. Okay, that's not bad. It is a cutback, which is going to make things a little interesting, but not horrible. And funny enough, alphabetically, it's the very first one. A banana roll is a fairly rare element. It is a fun one. We had it plenty last season. Here's a great example of it. It's very famous on a lot of Gerslauers. At least that's what I think of. Iron Curtain also has one. This is a great image of it. It's kind of almost like a dog tongue in a way, but not a bad element at all. Now, like I said, this element is going to have to be huge. So this banana roll will ideally be over here, which, by the way, if you're hearing any Roller Coaster Tycoon music, that's from the carousel because I imported it. Thought that was cute. Couldn't help myself. Alright, there's the banana roll done, and genuinely, this may be the longest an element has taken me across both seasons. Like, in this tight little area with 81 miles per hour to work with, I mean, that thing's like 175 feet in height, and obviously this big turnaround is custom done. Very Pantherian I-305 like. Surprisingly only pulls 4.5 G-forces at the very end here. For the most part, this whole element is around 3.5. As you can see, we're kind of dead-ending ourselves again, so depending on what we get, I may do the element here, or I may, I really don't know. And the biggest kind of elephant in the room that no one's really talked about yet is the fact that we have to do this backwards. Oh, and then I guess the other elephant in the room that's just chilling in the corner is that this is all spinning. This is going to be insanely nauseating. Yeah, let's jump over to the next element. I really want to put it here, so I think I'm ready to cash in that time slot. All right, there's the banana roll removed. Let's see what hopefully is thrown at us that's hopefully nice to work with. An X up, okay. Well,
You suck!
I should probably remove this. Because I've added the ability to do more transitional elements, I removed that, the X up and the X down. So let's actually see what's going to be here. Twisted horseshoe roll. Okay. This is a rare one. We only had one of these in the entirety of last season. So this is a one-of-a-kind element, I believe, unique to Maverick. Here's a good picture of it here. Pretty much what we just did, almost, with this huge turn, except that the entrance and exits were zero-G rolls. So, alright, so bear with me. If we exit with a counterclockwise zero-G roll and roll to the right, and exit with a zero-G roll, then we're lining ourselves up to do an interactive moment here. I think that that's the way to go, so we're going to get rid of this little thing that I made. These G-forces are going to be insane. Alright, I'll see you when this is done. Hopefully it doesn't take me nearly as long. Alright, so there's our twisted horseshoe roll, which is very stretched out. But you can see the zero-G roll exit and the zero-G roll entrance with some horrible heart lining. So I'm going to have to fix that later. I have no idea what I'm going to do to get this to clear. Because in order for it to do this twisted horseshoe roll comfortably and still make this, it has to be... I have to have another launch, right? Like, I don't understand. Maybe on the spike, I can have like one of those that kind of shoots the coaster back down. Kind of like Mr. Freeze. I don't know. I'm just yapping because I'm realizing in the very first episode of Season 2, the wheel is back to its usual shenanigans and I am absolutely screwed here. That's only 2 elements done. So we have to fit 2 more and then the spike naturally. So I would love to fill in this area. Maybe depending on what the next element is, it's like a turnaround. Fit another one, get the spike happening here. That would be fun. Either way, let's go see what it's going to be. So I think I'm ready once again to cash in the next one. So this vista is pretty cool though with the train going over. So pretty happy with how that looks. All right, so there's the twisted horseshoe roll removed. Let's see what's next. I think I'm about ready for the next one. I would love a cutback, but we know how the wheel works. So Google Images. Okay, one of the new ones. I'm actually really happy we got this. All right, so for Google Images, we are literally just going to look up roller coaster elements. I mean, it's probably going to give us like a vertical loop. This is the first one we get. Okay. This is a Batwing, I believe. So, yeah, we got our turnaround that we wanted. It works for us, I guess. This isn't a horrible place to get one, so, yeah, let's do it. Alright, there's our Batwing done. It works actually pretty well with the speed in which the coaster comes. Yeah, it might be a little too big. Might have to shrink it because even with the first launch, you can see it's kind of crawling a little bit. Oh, yeah, a lot of it. You can see we're set up on a dead end here. So last element, hopefully, I mean, if it's a turnaround, I mean, that sucks because I would love to have the spike pretty much right here. Like one of the first things you see. Yeah, so let's go to the wheel. I don't need another transitional element. I'm good to do the very last element. All right, that was the Google Images pick done. That was a very fun one. Very different than how we usually get them picked. I left it on here because obviously there's so many, so we can just do it again. Let's see what the last element of this coaster is going to be. Hopefully it's merciful. That's extremely merciful. That's not rigged. I know you guys are thinking, nope, that's a new pick. And we've got back-to-back new picks. And this was the definition of merciful from a wheel that is historically the opposite. So what do I want in this little patch of area? Now I can get whatever straight element I want. I think I'm going to do a very classic element. I'm going to do a vertical loop. And right after a very old school element being the Batwing, why not? Let's do a vertical loop. Alright, there's the vertical loop done as well as the spike, which is huge. It's a huge spike. Tallest point in the entire park so far. You can see we have a launch mechanism. By the way, I have no idea if this is realistic. Probably not. But don't worry, we threw some catwalks so we can pretend it is. Essentially what's happening here is the LSMs here are launching it up the spike, which is why it's so tall. And then as it's going back down, it shoots back the other way, sending it back through the layout at about 70 miles an hour or so. You can see it's launched up the spike about 200 feet and then launches back the other way because it's one of those back and forth ones. That's why we're using the bike and sidecar. A lot of G-forces there, definitely not healthy. But you can see it actually traverses the rest of the layout backwards pretty well. Not that backwards really exists with this coaster model type. It's a spinning coaster, but that's pretty solid speed. And it does a good job all the way until, you guessed it, the banana roll. So we get about halfway up here. I don't really know what to do at this point, if I'm being completely honest. The only thing I can think of, and it sucks, I don't want to do it, is like throw some LSMs here to just give it that extra oomph. That's terribly boring, but I'm not sure what else to do. I'm gonna try and brainstorm some ideas, and then we'll come back. But yeah, we're getting there. We're getting close.
6 hours later. 6 months later. Tomorrow for sure.
All right, I finally figured it out. Quite a while, and it's a little janky, but it's there. It completes the layout. How did I do it? Well, I kind of added LSMs, like I said. Ultimately, what I did was pretty much exactly what the King to Ka replacement is doing with the upside down launch, and pretty much just kind of made it so that it only launches one way. So when it's coming this way, it doesn't really affect the speed all too much, but when it's just going this way, it gives it that extra bit of oomph. So yes, the banana roll is modified. Yes, the horseshoe roll is modified, but I think it's pretty okay adjustments. I think they're acceptable for what is an insane ride. Typically at this point, what we would do is jump immediately to the theme wheel. But in season 2, we don't need to do that just yet. What we need to do instead is figure out the supporting attractions. That's what we're calling things like tracked rides, flat rides, all these stalls as well that will occupy the themed areas around it. So with that done, let's jump over to the supporting attractions wheel and figure out exactly what we're working with here. Here is the supporting attractions wheel. This includes flat rides and tracked rides and basically tells us how many of each that we are going to be using. Water slides are not on here. Water slides will be a separate addition, but that is going to be held until episode 2. So let's see how many flat rides or tracked rides we are going to get today. Starting off nice and simple, today we only have one flat ride. This is the flat rides wheel. There's 50 of them in Planet Coaster, so plenty to choose from. Let's see which one we are going to get. We only have one in this area, but better than all of last season. Chair-o-plane. That's kind of a boring one, but it does kind of fit next to the carousel, I suppose. It is this one right here. It's a bit small, so it's going to need some pathing and some decoration around it to make it kind of fill in this space. That's pretty much it for supporting attractions. We can get a whole host of things. We can get any single one of these flat rides, and we can also get any of these tracked rides, which is where things get really interesting. Now for the number of stalls, pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to spin this away. Oop, little ad, but 2 is the choice. 2 stalls is what will be in this area. Let's go find out what those stalls will be. Here's our stall types wheel. Has every type of food, every type of drink, restaurants, arcades, info center, restrooms. You can see they're weighted as well. Pretty self-explanatory once again, and I do apologize for the number of wheels. If anybody knows of any shortcuts or ways to kind of compartmentalize a lot of these, do let me know in the comments. But for today, let's see what the first stall is going to be in this very wheel-heavy video. A restaurant, that's fun. I've actually never built a restaurant in the game, so that's fun. Nice and custom as well. Let's spin it again, and let's see what the second stall will be right next to our restaurant. We are going to have a restroom, also pretty basic. I was kind of hoping for some of the more fun ones, but a restaurant's fun, and a restroom is, it's a restroom. And that's it. These are the 2 things that will be in this area. Of course, they're going to have nice buildings around them, but finally, and I do mean finally because this has been one lengthy episode, let's jump to the theme wheel and figure out how this whole area is going to be themed as, right next to the main entrance, so better be a good one. So here's our theme wheel. This is literally just taken from the last episode from season 1. Please comment down below any new ideas that you have. We do need to kind of bulk in this wheel a little bit more, but for today we're going to get one of these. A lot of really good ones. Let's see what it's going to be. Music and rock and roll. That's pretty fun. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Obviously, I'm thinking immediately off the bat, Rock and Roller Coaster is probably the number one example that I can think of for a music-themed coaster. Maybe Rip Ride Rocket as well. For today's episode, I'm just going to do what we've been doing all of Season 1 and just cut to the final product, where of course we will talk about the final stats of the coaster and really how all of this shaped up. This whole sliver of land, and even over there, will be completely done, and we can officially say that installment number 1 of Season 2 is wrapped up. So I will see you then. I do have a lot of work ahead of me, but it should be a fun one. Music is a really good suggestion, so I'll see you then. Alright everyone, welcome back to the first installment, the first completed installment to the Season 2 of the Wheel of Wonders. Let me introduce to you a name that probably isn't that shocking for being a music-themed roller coaster. This is Rewind. This coaster is huge. It took way longer than I think I expected it to when I first started, especially being a shuttle coaster. You can kind of get a glimpse at the entire installment here, all the way from like the main hub with the restaurant and the bathroom and the flat ride as well, that of course are new to the new season. You have this hub here, and then you see it extends all the way out to the entrance, which of course you remember from the layout itself. Yeah, not too much theming going on beyond the hub, and as well as like the kind of outskirts of what I did, because of course we're going to be expanding, so don't mind the kind of rough edges. But where the details are, which are particularly around this hub, I'm very, very happy with. And something I forgot to note, and probably one of the first things that you notice, is there are actually guests walking around. And now that I've unpaused the game, you probably also hear all the music as well. There's music all over this thing, not to the shock of anyone. There's like 4 different songs playing, depending on if you're on the flat ride, which is called Turntable, which of course is themed after a record player. And then there's different music playing over at the Broken Record Cafe, which has a nice little interior and everything. So I don't do too much love on interiors typically, but I thought for this kind of open air restaurant, why not? It's nice and cute, has some cool vinyls on the ceiling with some light fixtures and of course some tables. And then the last point I really didn't talk about is the bathroom, but it is a bathroom, so just thought I would show it, cross that off. It is there, it is functioning. All of the guests that are in the park can access the flat rides and now can use the bathroom and access some food. But enough about all that, let's talk about the actual fun part of the installment, which is the coaster. I had no idea what I really wanted to do with the actual building, the station building, so it's kind of just like this conglomeration of a bunch of different genres and eras of music. You see there's like cassette players, obviously record players, headphones, different visualizers and music notes. I don't know, I'm no music theory major expert, so I just threw together things that remind me of music, maybe like a recording studio or how do people listen to music, things like that, or sheet music like you see in this kind of facade piece over here. And really all of it leads to this big arching kind of almost concert stage type of entrance to the coaster, which does have access to a queue, which you see people warp through. This is the queue. There is an actual queue. This doesn't have any detail put into it just yet. I imagine I will come back to this, but the station itself is a big kind of red room, almost kind of like a recording studio in a way. The train is actually gone for now, but let's get it back and let's get it testing. And there it is, and you can get a quick glimpse at the very little theming that I did on the actual cars. Just another vinyl with some stars. We kind of leaned a little bit more towards rock and roll than any other genre for the ride itself. Let's get this actually running if we can. Someone's yelling over there. Alright, here it goes. You hear the rock and roll music, which is really, really sweet, and it goes in through this darkness and goes into this very rock and roller coaster-esque kind of launch. You can see the music notes counting down essentially and launching them through this little studio into a very rock and roll type of, if you can't tell, it was inspired by Rock and Roller Coaster or a little bit of Rip Ride Rocket as well. But you see all these kind of hovering neon images and symbols, very reminiscent of what you would see on Rock and Roller Coaster, or what used to be Rock and Roller Coaster. Now it's like Muppet Mayhem or something. But as it blasts through there, this is where the actual layout starts. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. A fair amount of custom supports actually, especially for this huge banana roll, as you can imagine. I can't remember if I showed this before. It's been quite a while since I've actually built the layout. Like I said, this did take a little bit longer than I thought it would. But here's the upside down launch that allows it to, when going backwards, make that huge, like 250-foot banana roll over the entrance, which I probably should have paused it while it was there. It was some nice custom supporting there. This is the little vista point that we have now with the entrance, which was the inspiration behind the first half of the challenge of this episode, was to have something really extreme over the entrance, and we do, and I really like how it looks. Nice little custom spine just to kind of show some kind of support on this zero-G roll, which is the exit of the horseshoe roll. Is this actually like structurally realistic? Certainly not, but it's minimalist enough that you can kind of keep a clear skyline, so I'm very happy with it. The train continues over here through the bat wing into another one of these classic kind of underground moments, maintenance areas, if you will. We had plenty of those in season 1. entering the vertical loop with some more custom supports, going by a little maintenance area, which would make sense for this kind of, I don't know, what do you call that, a propelling launch, into the spike, which I actually added a holding section. It reminded me of Possessed at Dorney back when it used to do that. Hopefully I can find some footage of that. It's been like 15 years since it did that. Anyway, as you know, this ride then goes and traverses the track backwards, and really that's the entire thing. That's the entire layout. But now that it's going this way, I guess we can actually take a glimpse at what it looks like over there. If we pause it, that's our proper vista point. Maybe that's the thumbnail, we'll see. But that is really, really sweet. You can get a better view of the cars as well because it's not entirely red anymore. It slows down a little bit as friction wants to do. And I'm not a huge fan of this launch, like just how extreme it is. But it's what's necessary to make it up this huge banana roll. So it is what it is. And now it traverses into the brake run, which is literally just everything else. Nothing crazy, and that's the entire ride. Now let's talk about stats, because this coaster is extreme. Despite not getting the extreme coaster on the wheel, it's supposed to be just a thrill coaster, this coaster is extreme, but it does have all green stats. 6.36 excitement, 4.01 fear, just barely green on that one, 1.38 nausea. So very good stats according to Planet Coaster. As for the particular stats, an average speed of 45 miles an hour is actually a little bit slower than I probably would have guessed. And for the G-forces, this is worth highlighting. 1.38 lateral G-forces is pretty uncomfortable, but I think it's realistic. 5.41 vertical G-forces is the one I want to talk about. Obviously 5.41, without saying, is high. It's a little uncomfortable, unrealistic in that way. But I think for being a moment, it's acceptable. Now where it's actually happening, I think it's happening after this second launch into this big turnaround, which if we turn the heat map on, you can see the different areas here as well, which that makes sense. You'll see in the POV kind of how sharp that turn is. It doesn't show us the highest number in the areas, but you can see where the purple is. It's pretty extreme. Also coming out of that second launch after the spike as well. Wherever it is, it maxes out at 5.41 Gs, so this is extreme, not super unrealistic, because if you remember in season 1 with Colossus and Roy, both of those broke 6, so 5.41 I guess in that regard is acceptable. But this has been a very extreme installment. I'm very, very happy with how it came out. I'm very excited to do the cinematic. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but for being a music-themed coaster, I imagine it's going to be pretty fun. But this POV, I know for sure, is very, very cool. You guys are really going to like it. So I think without further ado, that is really everything. All the guests have kind of disappeared. I guess they've already gone to their respective rides. But that is really all for the very first episode of season 2. Thank you all so much for your wait with this episode. It's been a long time since we've done any Wheel of Wonders videos, and it's very nice to be back. I forget how much fun these videos are, especially compared to some of the other videos that we do on this channel. So I hope you all enjoyed. Next episode will be very, very interesting because not only is there a new update coming out, which I may or may not integrate into the episode, we will also introduce the concept of the water park, wherever that may be. But until then, do take care. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, of course, as well to the members of the channel who keep this channel up and running. I'm so very thankful to you. Once again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on this episode, and I'm super excited for episode 2. Take care, everyone.